And we're live. It is just after 2 p.m., Wednesday, July 27th, as of the time of this recording. If you're watching this in Evergreen, feel free to leave comments in YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're watching this. And I'll make sure to either answer your questions or pass those along to my amazing guest today, Rom LaPointe. And we're going to have a great conversation all about leadership consulting and your bottom line today. So kind of pumped about that. We'll go ahead and get this intro kicked off right about now. So we'll see you here and we'll get the show started in 43 seconds. Hello and welcome to Live with Bottleneck. I'm your host, Jamie J. I'm also the CEO and founder of Bottleneck Distant Assistance. And just like Rom is going to demonstrate today, we're here to help stop the bottleneck in your business and hopefully in your life. Again, I don't believe in, and I say again because I say this every single episode, I don't believe in a work-life balance. I believe in life balance. Your personal and professional responsibilities construct your whole life. And so I'm a big advocate of that. I am the author of Quit Repeating Yourself, How Today's Businesses Are Using Systems and Processes to Build Their Business the Right Way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the end. But without any further ado, I want to introduce you today to Rom LaPointe. We are going to be talking about leadership consulting and your bottom line. Rom is the founder and CEO of Capricorn Leadership. And why can Rom help you stop the bottleneck in your business? Let me tell you. He's a business coach and advisor to CEOs, leadership teams, and boards. His proven process of strategic thinking, strategery, execution planning, and leadership development helps CEOs get from vision to results. During the past 15 years, Rom has served as CEO for 10 privately held companies, 6 that he founded and 4 that were acquired. Congratulations. None of these firms experienced an exit. 6 were very positive and 3 were failures. Each was a rewarding learning experience, some more painful than others. And that's one thing that I want to kind of point out today that you'll learn through this discussion. Failure is absolutely okay. Just don't do the same thing again and again, right? Learn from those failures. So without any further ado, please allow me to introduce you to the one and only Rom LaPointe. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing great, Jamie. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, man. Stoked. I am so stoked. All the way from Detroit.
That's right. The original D.
How's the weather out there?
It's beautiful. It's just this is the time to be in Michigan. The summer times in Michigan are great. Blue water, forests, and golf courses. It's lovely.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Ron, I wonder if maybe you can tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you got to today.
Yeah, happy to. So Capricorn Leadership. First thing I'll say about that, people ask me all the time, are you an astrologist guy? And I'm not really. Truth is, I was born. I share a birthday with Martin Luther King Jr. And so growing up in Detroit, which is a racially stressful and segregated town, the civil rights movement really resonated with me when I was a kid in the city of Detroit. Born and raised in the city. We moved to a suburb when I was younger. But that connection with civil rights and treating people equally and taking care of people has just been a part of my DNA. Elvis Presley was my dad's favorite musician. And so Elvis is a Capricorn. And I grew up with 8 tracks of Elvis Presley. Those of you that don't know what 8-track is, it's kind of like a bigger cassette. And a cassette is what streaming used to be on. But so Elvis Presley, Martin Luther King Jr., and then I was an engineer by training, and so math and science were cool to me. So Sir Isaac Newton and Stephen Hawking are both Capricorns, and so it just kind of looked like some cool stuff with Capricorns. Turns out the Capricorns are persistent and ambitious and hardworking, and I think those are good ethics for any leader. So that's where the name comes from. And living in Detroit, we're an automotive town. So the big three, Ford Motor, General Motors, et cetera, all those suppliers, that dominates the thinking in the industries here. And so I grew up swearing I'd never work for an automotive company because I saw the swings and the good days and the bad days. And sure enough, got an engineering degree and went to work for Ford Motor Company. So I started at a big organization. And what I didn't know at the time, this is a long time ago, but I didn't know that culture didn't really fit for me. I didn't feel like I really fit there, even though I could do the job and all that stuff. And so that was an early lesson when I was 23, 24 years old, that the fit mattered. I ended up leaving Ford and moving on with my career from there.
What made you not feel like you were a fit?
Well, a couple things, the cube farm, sort of the groundhog moles that pop up from behind their cubes, and you look out, it's a sea of cubes. There were folks in their cubes that had been there for 30 years, so I could see my future, and they were playing solitaire all day, or they were trying to just hide from any responsibility and accountability. And there was a lot of that going on. I'm not trying to pick on Ford. I think that's a corporate thing in a lot of organizations. So that didn't fit. I wanted to make an impact and run fast. And I was told by a lot of my senior managers and leaders to just kind of take a step back and relax. And, you're making too much noise here. And, so it was clear to me that it just wasn't a good fit. So pretty visceral feeling,
I'm glad that you said it. No offense to Ford or anything. And I say the same thing. I'm proudly unemployable at this point. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of. I was in corporate America for 12 years. It took me 11 years to figure out how to get out. And I had the same challenge, but that's no knock on corporate America. For those people that love it, by all means. But I hear you, Rom. It just wasn't for me. It sounds
and they're great clients for me now. So I work with a lot of bigger corporations. I work with small, medium, and large companies. So some are public, most of them are private. And it's less of me being a guru, more of just sharing my experiences and what I learned in my leadership journey. And in the bio that you read, it talked about 10 different companies, and that's actually over a longer period of time than the 15 years. But the last 15 have been really eventful as a serial entrepreneur and investor, and lots of good things have happened. And Jamie, all of it boils down to the team. To me, just to cut to the quick, it's about the team.
Yes. So we're talking about leadership consulting and your bottom line.
Yeah.
And you just nailed one of the biggest challenges I think with anybody is if you're going to be a solopreneur, you're charging that hill, you know exactly what to do. If you zig, you zig, you zag, you zag. If you have a team and you zig and they're zagging, confusion ensues. And what I found is there's a vision and a mission, without getting all technical and all that kind of stuff. But there's a direction that the leader wants to move in. However, and this is a big capital H, however, or a but, even though I don't like saying that word, I like saying and.
Yes, and yeah.
That there, if not everybody is fighting for that same idea, that same objective, that same vision, it's going to be really hard to climb that mountain.
Yeah. And
so I want to know, first of all, before we get into talking about the bottom line and what the leadership has to do with that, how do you, when you say it has to do with a team, maybe dive into that a little bit and tell me a little bit more about what factors do you look at in creating an unbelievable, stellar team?
Yeah, so I think high performance is the first phrase I would talk about. So high performance to me does not mean burning people out, does not mean losing your health or your marriage or your family. And you talked about work-life balance before. High performance to me means maximizing your potential. And the truth is, we don't really know what we're capable of. And so if we can unlock that talent in people and really let them lean into their strengths and be in a safe place from a trust perspective where they can say what they have to say, ask questions, and be really contributors, it's huge. So high performance is maximizing your potential and without cost to your health or to your family life, right? So it doesn't mean don't work hard. It just means there's some healthy boundaries we need to have. There's a concept of the corporate athlete that I did not coin. That's a article that came out a long time ago from Harvard Business Review, but basically the idea is athletes, we all know they train, they practice, they recover, and they play a game every now and then, right? And in business, every day is a game. We're on the field of business every day. And so we need to create some rituals and some space for ourselves and our team where they get a chance to recover. They get a chance to regroup. And that's the strategic thinking part of my consulting practice. So how do we use offsites or separate from getting out of working in the business to zooming out to working on the business on a regular basis? And remind ourselves what's the Everest we're trying to climb, what's the North Star we're trying to achieve, and getting that team back to alignment on that. Because as you said, no matter what the leader wants, no matter how badly the leader wants it, if the team's not seeing it or believing it, understanding it and working toward it, it won't happen.
Okay, so there's a couple things I that came up when you said that. So I agree, hook, line, sinker with what you said. Some of the biggest challenges I think in a team aspect, a team environment, if there's not, and I'm a big systems and processes freak, right? And I think you need that foundation established. Fortunately for you, you get the opportunity of working with a little bit more, I guess, companies with a little bit more experience, a little bit more time. They've developed these core systems.
Some of them are, yeah, for sure.
But that in there is in my issue the biggest challenge, because once people finish this and they think they have that role documented or whatever the case may be, it's hard for them to continue to keep that up.
Yeah.
And what happens is failures in leadership oftentimes are because of mismanaged expectations. And I think before you can actually ever work on the business, working in the business and developing those crucial areas of establishing what is expected of any particular role is huge. And so I think a lot of people have this myth, I don't want to work in my business, I want to work on it. But you, in my opinion, have to kind of refocus in it before you can work on it.
Yeah, no, I both are true. So this is definitely a yes and, for sure.
Yes and.
so I feel like they're interdependent. If you don't know where you're going or what you're trying to achieve or why you're doing it, it's very hard to know how to create those processes and those best practices. But if you know where you're going, but you don't know how to get there and you don't have an execution plan, then you're not going to get there. So the whole thing is a combination of that strategic thinking with execution planning. So we do a lot of accountability. We do a lot of work in the business on process. I add a lot of process and discipline, even to clients that have it, because what they don't do necessarily is hold people accountable. And so really get at this high performance idea in this team is the health of the team. If a leader isn't having tough, challenging conversations and holding people accountable, and I don't mean berating people, I don't mean yelling at people, I mean having a real conversation that what you're doing here is really helpful and could be better if you did this, or what you're doing here is really off the mark. Without doing that coaching role, our leaders are not going to get the most out of their teams.
Gotcha. And that does make a lot of sense. So if you get a team to get kind of outside, the number one reason why people leave a job right now is, do you know what that is?
Well, it used to be their boss. Now I think it's a tie with money on their boss.
Yeah, it's typically the manager.
Yeah.
And I've had the pleasure, and I say pleasure because I've learned so much from it, from hiring over 1,000 people. And during that time, I've really learned a lot. I've seen turnover. I've seen where I fell flat on my face, and I take responsibility for everything that goes wrong, and I reward the team for everything that goes right. And I really believe in that, because without them, we can't do anything. Also, what we do is every single January, every single team member gets an opportunity to revise their role and responsibilities.
Oh, cool.
Interests change over time. And maybe someone finds that, I can do this a little bit better. We've actually had an audio editor become a video editor because they really found more interest in video editing. And it gave them a lot of excitement and charge. And then we also let everybody make their own decisions. There's a plan for that. Is it good for the company? Is it good for the team? Is it good for the
it's got to fit
the client, right? But it gives people a feeling of, oh my gosh, my voice matters, and what I think. And I'm wondering if in your strategic thinking and your environment and the practices that you do, whether it's in or on the business, include any kind of cool ideas like that to reinvigorate the team.
Yes. So short answer is yes. And to me, so I grew up as an engineer, so I think about logic and systems and processes. They're essential. I also grew up realizing that without a sale, nothing really happens. And so I've got this sort of, you've got to be able to promote, and sell doesn't mean necessarily transaction. It means persuasion and influence. And so to me, leadership is influencing others to take actions that produce positive results. And so that is, there's a role of leading by example. There's a role of giving them the tools and resources and giving them role clarity, to your point. So there's a lot of literature, started with Daniel Pink's book, Drive, probably a decade ago or so. He said that what motivates people in most knowledge worker jobs, basically. So if you're working remotely from home and you're solving problems and being creative, you're a knowledge worker. So those types of folks need three things. They need, number one, autonomy. And so you were just talking about the autonomy to help craft your role and your growth and development plan. That autonomy is essential. The second thing you need to have is some purpose. You have to understand why we're doing this as a company, why I'm doing this on this team. And then the third one is mastery. So back to your challenge and growth, going from audio to video. If I'm not working to get better, then I'm not growing, and that doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good to most people. So autonomy, mastery, and purpose are the three elements for motivation, in addition to, good pay and all those good things. So that then leads into a couple other books. General Stanley McChrystal wrote a book called Team of Teams. There's another book called Humanocracy, which is by Gary Hamel. All of those talk about autonomous, smaller teams. So less corporate, bureaucratic, more letting people understand the mission, what the goals are, and then let them get after it, and giving them the tools and resources and coaching to do that. That's the spirit of the work that we do.
I love that spirit. Have you noticed in working with these teams, because of COVID, that you're experiencing more hybrid work models?
Sure.
People working remotely. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you've gone in and maybe supported or guided these companies with when dealing with all this new stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of experiments running, I would say, right? No one's figured it out, and I use that word intentionally. I think experimenting with things to seeing what works, because what might work for a little while may or may not be sustainable. I think giving people the safety and the autonomy to work from home more than in the office is the right thing to do, especially during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic and into this new normal. I also think that there's this difference between efficiency and effectiveness. So doing planning meetings and strategy meetings on Zoom or virtual tools was very efficient. We didn't have to travel. We could just get everybody to dial in. It was super efficient, right? We could put up the question, answer the question, and go pretty quickly. And that kept things going and moving for my practice, for my clients. But there's a little bit of a loss of effectiveness. And that effectiveness meaning the connection with people. So Jamie, you and I, if we were in a room together, we'd probably have a little bit more of a chat before this interview and probably a little bit of a chat after the interview. Maybe we'd go get some coffee, or we'd hang out a little bit. We get to talk more about our family or our hobbies. You see my guitars back there, right? So that helps you actually be more effective in a team dynamic because you care about the people that you're working with. It's very easy when they're a square on the screen they're a square on the screen,
Yeah.
So what I'm really trying to say is we're trying to figure this out, but everyone that I'm working with is in some hybrid state. Either that's because they already were. A couple of my clients were virtual before the pandemic. So they actually had an easier go initially, but the strain of never getting together in person is wearing on people. So
I agree. We're 100% remote and I've been remote since 2006. So it didn't affect us in that way,
Right.
but I completely understand. I mean, 99% of my team is in other countries.
Yeah.
So it's not, I haven't even met them. And the
Right.
longest person that's been with me is 8 years. Like, I've never met him.
But Jamie, do you spend some time with them though, in addition to just the working meetings?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, we have a weekly meeting every Tuesday. Just this week, we had 3 people with birthdays, and we're notorious for singing happy birthdays to everybody on Zoom, and we sing it awful. And it's almost like the worse it is, the better it is.
It's like ugly sweaters, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that aspect is really cool. And I've been blessed with some just amazing people. And I think with technology where it is, our world is shrinking. The talent pool is increasing.
For sure.
And I truly believe that there was a study done by a company called Dojo.co. And in this study, it was I don't know, 4 or 5 months after the pandemic occurred, and they had it was a software company, about 200 employees in New York, and when it happened, they sent all of their programmers home. Right, the whole office had to go home. We were on lockdown. Right. Their productivity, and they measured their productivity by the lines of code that they wrote each day, it increased by 70%. And they couldn't figure out what was the delay, because there was a massive delay in getting updates out and new software out. And they were talking, why is this massive delay when the productivity has increased so much? Well, they lost that collaborative element.
Right.
So what they were having to do was work bugs out. And then it took longer to work the bugs out because this code didn't match this code. And there was all this stuff going on. But one of the things they did find was that 10% of their organization, not only were they productive, but they thrived in that atmosphere, in that environment. And so they keep 10% of their team 100% remote.
Nice.
And then they worked out the hybrid model for everyone else, and their company is doing wonderful.
Yeah.
And I just think you got to look at it.
Yeah, I think it's forcing leaders that I work with, and broadly speaking, all leaders, to just be more creative and thoughtful about those things. So it isn't as simple as show up at the office, punch in, punch out sort of mentality. You really need to be thoughtful about creating communication links, creating connections, creating opportunities for people to come together. And it's harder that way because it just takes a little more time. But I think before we wrap up, which I know we're getting close, there's a word when I think about leadership in the bottom line. So the word that comes up to me is responsibility. Our leaders have a responsibility to all the stakeholders. Yes, to their shareholders, their investors, themselves, their people and their customers. But their responsibility is to not just make the profits in the bottom line happen, but to do it sustainably over time by building your culture and your people. And the talent war existed way before the pandemic. Getting good people and keeping them has been a thing for a long time. Engaging people, Gallup has been measuring this for a long time, that the engagement rates have been really low. So the responsibility of the leader is not just the bottom line. It is that. It's results, but it's, my belief is it's through people, growing people, developing culture that's sustainable. And that's a responsibility to work on the people relationships and the health of the team, as well as the health of the products and services.
Oh, I love that. You nailed it. I think, it's people, we're social beings, us humans. And
I'm guessing after all your episodes, Jamie, you've talked about this before, but when I hear the bottleneck, just a quick, look in the mirror, the bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle. So the bottleneck, to me, I don't confront leaders to be mean or disrespectful, but leaders need to pick up their game in terms of responsibility, and do less of the decision making and more of the direction setting and coaching.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I was told by my advisory board is, Jamie, you need to be firm but fair.
Yeah.
And when I ask questions that instill confidence in people and have them help or support or guide the ideas that are crafted. And I didn't really think about it, but when I shifted my mindset just a little bit there, it was so fascinating to, a couple of years ago. I'll give you one quick story before
Sure.
my mom passed away.
Oh,
Obviously, I knew her all my life, right? My best friend. I love my mom to death, and it was in March 1st of 2020. Well, I found out in January. I got a call and I had to leave.
hmm.
I literally booked a flight and left the next day. And then I got there with all the craziness that was going on. I called my assistant and I said, hey,
Hmm.
I don't know what's going on. I need you to kind of handle stuff because we had all this stuff going on.
Right.
And I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'll let you. Well, for about 2 months, I was pretty much gone
Hmm.
from the company. When I got back, she had restructured some stuff. We had more clients. We were doing better. The team was thriving.
Wow.
And I thought, how amazing is and fortunate are we to be surrounded by an amazing team,
Yeah.
and to let loose of the responsibility, which is a very scary thing, by the way.
Very scary. Very scary. Seriously.
It was a big game changer for me. That taught me a huge lesson.
So that was a positive experience and sort of a forcing factor for you. I mean, you had to do what you had to do, which was the right thing to do. Most leaders that I talk to, I belong to an organization called EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global network, 17,000 entrepreneurs. And most of those folks learn that when they step out of their business for a week or 2 weeks or a month, the business doesn't implode or fail. It actually gets better. And so there's something very instructive about that. And it's happens a lot. It happened to me. Doesn't mean you got to go and be disconnected and you're out of the equation forever, but not being so hands-on, being more coaching and guiding and direction setting, and letting the talent that you've brought in really, again, be unleashed and unlocked is a great thing for you and your business.
I know we got to wrap up, but I have two more questions.
Sure.
How did you get the cojones, for the lack of a better word, to step away? What did your mind go through? Because I find we have to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And so many of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about business leaders.
Yeah.
This is our baby. You need to do this and this and that. How did you come?
Well, I realized one of the reasons I didn't stick with engineering was I realized I wasn't going to be the world's best engineer. And that's either just reality or humility or a bit of both. But then when I started to be in leadership roles as a younger person, I realized that the real knowledge and expertise wasn't with me. I was sort of the facilitator of that. I was a VP at 27, and so I had to rely on people with more tenure and veteran experience. And so I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. Then when I became the CEO and started my own companies, I knew I wasn't the smartest guy in the room. I had to hire people that were as good or better than me in their areas of expertise. And that to me is the trick. If you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
Hire better people and admit that your job as the CEO and leader isn't to be the smartest person in the room. It's to make sure that those smart people are aligned and going in the right direction and they have all the resources they need. I believe that's your job.
Oh man, good points. Well, out of respect for the time,
yes.
How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so really, it's really simple. CapricornLeadership.com. I've got a blog that I regularly update, and that's really and I'm also on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn. Those are my two main channels right now. I'm not doing a lot of other stuff. Some of these interviews have been awesome. Jamie, this has been a lot of fun. But I would say the blog's got tools, downloads, a little more depth to the stuff we touched on briefly today.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing so much, Rom. I really appreciate your time. Do you have just 1 second to hold on while I wrap up?
You bet.
Oh, fantastic. I love Rom's straightforwardness. He is the type of person that it seems to me just through this discussion, he just lets things go and fly how they are. And I really appreciate that. A lot of us need truth in our lives. And sometimes it's painful to hear the truth. One of the things that I cannot recommend enough to help stop the bottleneck in your business, and I love his explanation of the bottle, the bottleneck's at the top of the bottle. And it's so true. At a certain point, we just need to kind of get over ourselves. Asking for help or assistance is oftentimes a very scary thing. We all maintain a certain level of pride, otherwise we wouldn't be where we're at. But sometimes you just kind of need to suck it up. I really love the fact that Rom believes in a high performance within the team, maximizing your potential and unlocking the talent in people. Find out what they're really good at. And if you can't find that out, well, you might want to reach out to Rom, and you can go to CapricornLeadership.com. I did share his website a little bit earlier as well. Rom's also on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a wonderful platform, so reach out to him there. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out. I will make sure to send those over to Rom to kind of help you through. I've been talking today with Rom LaPointe. He's the founder, CEO of Capricorn Leadership. And we talked about leadership consulting and your bottom line, what it means to, how you affect your bottom line in a positive way is through developing a really, really good team. You cannot be the smartest person in the room. If you are, you're in the wrong room. So find some really good, talented people. If you missed the last episode, I talked with Doug Thorpe. We talked about moving from founder to CEO. He's an executive coach and business advisor. I'd highly recommend going and checking that out. And coming soon to your earbuds, I'm going to be talking with Shiv Gupta. He's the owner of Incrementors, how to plan and rebuild for the brand post-COVID. That's coming up Wednesday, August 10th, 2022 at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. And August 3rd, we may have a surprise for you. If you want to learn more about how you can break through the bottleneck in your business today, go to Bottleneck.Online/BTV. That's Bottleneck Television. And of course, I mentioned I'm an author. Go to quitrepeatingyourself.com. Learn more about how today's leaders are using systems and processes to grow their business the right way. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jamie J., host of Live with Bottleneck and founder and CEO of Bottleneck Distant Assistance, where I help stop the bottleneck in your business and your life. And don't forget, create your own ripple. Create it. Have fun with it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, Rom LaPointe, I talked with him today, and please go check him out. Yeah, have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon.